We started looking at Nehemiah a few weeks ago, and we are going to continue. And we completed chapter 5, and I'll just go through it very quickly. Remember the first 5 verses of chapter 5. We saw how the people were complaining. The poorer Jews were upset because they were being forced to mortgage their fields, sell their children into slavery, and borrow money at high interest just to buy food and pay taxes. The nobles and the officials were exploiting their own people during a time of famine and hardship. So it was an internal crisis that threatened the unity of the people, and it was so important that the people were united, because they were building the wall and in the midst of so much opposition. So there was a destruction from within. Then we looked at verses 6 to 13, how Nehemiah confronted those nobles and how he reformed the whole system. Nehemiah, he got angry, and when he heard this, he investigated it, remember, and he confronted the nobles and officials publicly. He rebuked them for charging interest, and he demanded they return the land and the money and give back what they had taken. And the people agreed, and Nehemiah made them swear an oath before the priest to follow through. And the last section, we looked at it last week, verses 14 to 19, Nehemiah's example of servant leadership. He explained that for 12 years as governor, he didn't take the food allowance he was entitled to, so he wouldn't burden the people. While others used their position to get rich, he sacrificed personal gain to lighten the people's burden and keep them focused on the work of rebuilding. Remember, every day he used to feed 150 people, officials, maybe poor people, and others. Every single day he used to do that. But not only that, he extended hospitality even to heathen people. People who used to come and do business with them, or people passing by and they needed some help. So you could really see his heart. And he closes by asking God to remember him for this. So, beloved, Nehemiah was a great example of what servant leadership looks like. Now, as we would say today, he basically wrote the playbook on servant leadership. So in chapter 5, he fixed the problem inside the camp, and that's important. And chapter 6, we have another problem coming from outside. And the question is, will he come down off the wall? And that is the whole reason. All what is happening here, they want Nehemiah to come down the wall for the work to stop. And my subject this evening, brethren, is distraction disguised as invitation. Distraction disguised as invitation. So we'll read again. If you could just turn to Nehemiah chapter 6, and I want to read from verse 1. And it came to pass, when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, the Arabian, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall, and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, Come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Ono. but they thought to do me mischief. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease, whilst I leave it and come down to you? Yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. So the first 4 verses, it's all about destruction disguised as a reasonable meeting. So I just read verses 1 and 2. Sanballat, Tobiah, beloved, and Geshem hear the wall is nearly done. So they invite Nehemiah to meet them in Ono, or the plain of Ono. And verses 3 and 4, let me just read it quickly again. And I sent messengers unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease, while I leave it and come down to you? So Nehemiah's reply, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. And verse 4, yet they sent unto me 4 times after this sort, and I answered them after the same manner. So they send the same request 4 times. Beloved, he gives the same answer 4 times. And let us look at the tactic that being used there. Now, this wasn't an honest invitation, and let me tell you why. The plains of Ono was about 25 miles from Jerusalem. 25 miles. Now, if Nehemiah had to travel 25 miles, no buses in those days, you didn't have train, yeah, he would have to, maybe he had a donkey or a horse, I don't know. So he'd have to use that animal to travel 25 miles to a meeting. How long it's going to take, yeah? And then he will have to make his way back. So you're talking about a few days. They wanted to pull him far enough away from the work for a few days. Now, in an ancient context, beloved, meeting with enemies often meant ambush or capture, They're telling you to come, but they might have other motives. They might want to ambush you. They might send people to ambush you and capture you, because they don't want you to continue what you're doing. Now, one might say the invitation sounds reasonable. Let's talk. Yeah, that's what let's talk. Now, who would refuse a meeting? And it was repeated 4 times. Beloved, persistence can wear you down. When somebody asks you something now, you say no. And they ask you again and you say no. And ask you again, you say no. And then when they ask you, you might just say yes, just to get the person off your back. But my friends, their goal was to stop, to stop the work by pulling the leader off the wall. Now, why Nehemiah's response works, beloved? He was clear about one thing. He knew what mattered right now. He said, I am doing a great work. Because to say yes to the meeting is to say no to the work. And why should the work stop? And that is his argument. Why should the work stop? So he didn't change his tune under pressure. Sometimes we bend under pressure. We give in to pressure. As I said, persistence can wear you down. Yeah? But they asked 4 times, and 4 times he gave them the same answer. No negotiation. No negotiation, no hesitation. So here we see the enemy try to pull Nehemiah off the wall by inviting him to a meeting in Ono. Now, Ono is a place, so you cannot say it was evil. We don't know that. But it was a distraction disguised as an invitation. Now, beloved, Ono was a meeting spot that looked harmless, but actually it was a trap to distract Nehemiah from the work God gave him. So let me ask you, what's your Ono today? My friend, what is calling you down from the work God gave you? Perhaps good opportunities. Or you have a good opportunity to do something to improve on your social life. Or something happened and you might look at it and say, but that is a wonderful opportunity for me. Yeah? Yes, it can be a good opportunity. But the thing is, my friend, is it the best opportunity? Yes, it is a good opportunity, but is it taking you away from the work of God? Yes, it is a good opportunity to improve on your social life and comfort and these sort of things, but is it taking you away from the work of God? Just like people, Christian people today, they tell you, I got a job. I got a big job someplace. And they're making all preparations to go. But they never thought about church. Never thought about church. Yes, I'm going there. I'm going to this big job, lots of money, lots of opportunities, and all these sort of things. They never thought about church. Why am I going to church? Will I be able to serve God? I knew of a young man who left church and he went to a place where he got a scholarship. And you are struggling and you get a scholarship. My goodness, who will say no to a scholarship? I'll get a degree, I don't have to pay for it. But then one day he wrote and he said, there is no church in that area. You understand? No church in that area. And not long after, he had nothing to do with church. Yes, it is a good opportunity, but is it the best opportunity? Maybe an urgent request, my friends, that derail the important work. It could be meetings, it could be chats, it could be conflicts that pull you into a drama. But let me tell you, my friend, you know what will protect the work? If we are able to focus. I think we are losing focus too quickly. Yeah? Too quickly. We should be able to focus, because this is what that is going to protect the work. Look at Nehemiah. 4 times they invited him. It's almost like they were begging him to come to a meeting. And 4 times he gave the same answer. He didn't hesitate. Not because they were persistent that he gave in, he cracked under pressure. Nothing like that. The same answer I gave you the first time is the same answer I'll give you the second, and the same answer I'll give you the third, and the same answer I'll give you to the fourth. Same answer. Why? Because this is a man who was really focused on the work God sent him to do. And we have traced his life from the time he was in the palace in Shushan, now in Jerusalem. And you can see that this is a man on a mission. And he knew it was a godly mission. He knew it was God. You look at all the things that happened. How he found favor in the sight of the king, and how the king assisted him with material and other help, until he got there. And you can see that, and he knew that God was with him. Of course, there will be difficulties. We looked at them in chapter 5. There were a lot of issues, but he dealt with them. And the reason why he was able to deal with them so decisively is because he was so focused on the work. So when you are focused, it will protect the work. So my friend, you don't have to explain yourself to every distraction. And some Christians are like that. Somebody asks you to do something, you cannot do it. You take 2 hours to explain to the people why you cannot do it. Maybe you should have gone. You understand? Why I cannot do it? Some people are so easily distracted. I am doing a great work, he said, and cannot come down. That is a complete answer. You don't have to explain every little detail and apologize and all these other things. That is not necessary. Your day was spoiled because of a quick chat, you know that? Huh? Somebody, just a quick chat. Somebody calls you on the phone, just a quick chat. A colleague, a friend, or even sometimes a social media ping. You know, something that people believe that is urgent. But when you assess it, is it really important? Yes, the other party sees it as something that is urgent. Yeah, but is it important? It sounds reasonable. Sometimes they're like, can I grab 10 minutes out of your time? I'm sure this has happened to you. Somebody wanted 10 minutes of your time, and it became 2 hours. And if you didn't put your foot down, you'll still be there. 10 minutes out of your time. So 10 minutes turned into 1 hour, and the main work you're doing stalls. And it is important what you're doing. And sometimes you are the only one who can do it. And for that work to be completed, you have to do it. But somebody asks 10 minutes of your time, and it turns into hours. So sometimes, my friend, it is just polite to say yes. Yes, to say it's polite, yes. But guess what? It stopped the world, though. Yes, polite, very nice man, very nice lady. Yeah. Yes, but it stopped the work. The work God sent you to do, it stopped because you said yes to somebody else. So it might be a good opportunity, but it is not your calling. It is not for you. You are building one project, but another decent opportunity shows up. It's exciting, visible, and people want you on it. Now, saying yes feels like it's almost like growth, But my friends, it split your focus, and neither thing get finished well. You understand? You are doing something very important, and you know how important it is. Yeah? Somebody called you to do something else, and politely said yes. And you're trying to do both of them, and none of them, you cannot complete any one of them. So in the end, what did you achieve? Now the meeting in Ono, you might say, might not be evil. It was just not the work God gave him to do. God sent him to build the wall. And that's what he's supposed to do, to build the wall. So we can talk about so many examples. Sometimes, someone tries to drag you into an argument, office politics, or political things, or online debate, or something. Engaging feels like defending yourself. I have to engage in that because I'm going to defend myself. Or setting the record straight, as we say. But it takes your energy off the work you are meant to do. So you see, my friends, Sanballat wanted Nehemiah off the wall, into a side conflict, That's what he was aiming at. Get him off the wall. Hell, he's very high on the wall, building the wall. Get him down those scaffolds, so we can engage him into a side conflict. All these illustrations, my friend, sound reasonable. and refusing, you might say, feels rude. But Nehemiah shows that protecting your focus is leadership. That's what it is. It might not be popular. You know how we are today. We want to be popular. We want everybody to like us. So we turn into yes people. Yes. You're doing something very important. Somebody else wants you to do this, but you want to be nice. So you say yes. And somebody else yes. And everybody yes. And in the end, you didn't do anything. You didn't achieve anything. But just a few things I want to tell you this evening, Reverend. First of all, guard your time like it's Nehemiah building the wall. Beloved, if it is not moving the main work forward, not now is a valid answer. Yes, I understand what you're saying. I understand your predicament, but not now. You understand? Not now. It might not be the answer the person is expecting, but this is the right answer. Because you have something doing that is so important that you cannot turn or you cannot stop for any reason whatsoever. Fear God means you answer to Him first. And so often Christians forget that. We answer to God first. But sometimes we want to play nice. It is a nice thing. You understand? But remember, you answer to God first. If He gave you the work, you don't hand the schedule over to anyone else or anyone else's demand. God has given you the work. So you are doing God's work. You answer to Him first. You think you must stop doing the Lord's work? You must. Did you pray? Did you pray and ask God whether you should really stop? Or you just feel that you should stop? So you must guard your time, just like Nehemiah was guarding the building of the wall, and how he was so focused. And the second thing I want to tell you, clarity kills distraction. When you know, my friend, the importance of what you're doing, say no to good things get easier, because you know the importance of what you're doing. You know what he said? Nehemiah, I fear God. Nehemiah had an audience of one, You know that is God. Sometimes in American politics, they say, oh, those people, they have an audience of one. They're trying to please the president. Yeah, they know he's watching. So they're trying to please him. Well, Nehemiah, he had an audience of one. So when you are living for God's approval, beloved, you stop needing to say yes to every invitation to prove yourself. Because you want God to be pleased with you. You are seeking the approval of God. So how are you going to please God and please everybody else? How is this going to happen? And the third thing I want to say, my friends, don't trade that important work for an argument. Engaging every fight costs you the work only you can finish. Sometimes we tend to think that we have to win every argument and we must be involved in this argument. I have to be engaged in it. Sometimes it had nothing to do with you. You overheard something. but you're in it. So fearing God puts everything in perspective. So let me ask you, do you fear God? Yes, we are Christians. I have no reason to doubt anyone here. Yeah? We are Christians. We have given our testimony. We worship God. We serve Him. You know, we do a lot of things for God. We try to live for Him as much as possible. Yeah? But the question is, my friends, do you really fear God? Because if you fear God, like Nehemiah, you will not be easily distracted. If you fear God, you will always be focusing on the work He has sent you to do. You know the amount of Sanballats and Tobias we have in this world? You know the amount of things, even churches trying to derail you, because they want you to be like them. People have said to us that those people, everything is Bible, Bible. As we should be the Bible sometimes, or the Bible plus something. No, it is the Bible. Because it is the Bible is God's work. It is His church. And He sent us on a mission to do His work, to do His will, and this must get priority. And I've said it to you, even when you in your secular job, you're working for God, Yeah, you know that? You're working for God. And the way you do your work will say a lot about how you serve God. The way you do your work will prove whether you fear God. And I hope all of us here are God-fearing people. So Sanballat could threaten Nehemiah's reputation, but God was the one he was accountable to. And that's the way I want you all to think here. You understand? People might try to destroy your reputation. Let them go ahead. But make sure your life pleases the Lord. That is the most important thing. And that's why Nehemiah was able to stay on the wall. No matter what they did, they could not get him down. He knew exactly what he was going to do. He knew who sent him. He was so focused that any little distraction, he would see it because he feared God so much. So we have to ask ourselves, brethren, do we just talk about fearing God, or do we really and truly fear God? So my friend, that I fear God, we see in verse 15 in chapter 5, is the root that makes Nehemiah chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, Nehemiah said in chapter 5, verse 15, he didn't abuse his power because of the fear of God. He did not want to do anything wrong. He did not want to do anything that will dishonor God, that God would be displeased with him. And sometimes Christian people, they don't care about that. They don't care about that. If their pride is hurt, they would lash out, And sometimes the way we do things, we have so much anger in us, we don't even care whether God is disappointed in us, or whether God is pleased with us or not. Well, if you are like that, that means you lack the fear of God. You understand? When people fear God, they respect God. When people fear God, they put God first. That is what Nehemiah did. He feared God, so he put God first. And that same fear is what led him to say no in verse 3, chapter 6. No. And I can read it to you again. And I sent messages unto them, saying, I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and come down to you? No matter how many times you ask, he will tell you no. Because what he's doing there is more important than anything else. And all the other distractions, all this invitation is not good enough to make Nehemiah live the work which God sent him to do. So chapter 5, brethren, fear God so you don't exploit people. That's what we see. And Nehemiah, you know how he got all the nobles together and he spoke to them. You know, he was very angry, the Bible said, and he spoke to them very sternly, and they were shaken. And they agreed to return all the things they stole and to give the people back their land and give them the money which they had charged, the interest and so on. Yeah? So if you fear God, Nehemiah says, you will not exploit people. And chapter 6, fear God so you don't get distracted by people. One, if you fear God, yeah, you will not exploit people. The other one, if you fear God, you will not be distracted by people. Because I can tell you, there were a lot of people here in this world that will try to derail you. You know, sometimes people will even tell you, you're taking this Christian thing so seriously, you know. People have said that to me, you know. When I went to seminary, a man told me, I'm a Christian, but I'll never send my child to seminary. He said, you know, and what made it worse, he thought I went to learn about the priesthood. He thought I was a priest, you know. And they believe you cannot take here Christians, so many other people are Christians. You know, why you have to take this thing seriously? Why you have to sell everything you have and go to school? Why you do this thing? There are so many people, even people who claim to be Christians, that will tell you all these things because they want to derail you. Yeah? But you should know your God. You should know your mission. Yeah? And you should learn to fear God. Because this is what that will really keep us focused. Because when a man fears God, he wants to please God in everything. Yeah? But today, we want to please man. We want to be yes. Yes to everything. And the work which God calls us to, yeah, suffers. And that is why in chapter 5 verse 19 and chapter 6 verse 14, we'll see later, prayer is not random there, you know. It is the source of courage to Nehemiah. Nehemiah was such a prayerful person. He was always praying. Isn't that wonderful for us to be a praying people, always praying, always find an opportunity to go to God in prayer, to pour our hearts before Him, to ask Him for things, yeah, to thank Him for things, ask Him for help, ask Him for strength, ask Him for guidance. Honestly, I don't know why people skip prayer meeting when they can do better. If you work in, you know, there are issues. There are times you cannot attend. We know that. Yeah. There are times you cannot attend Bible study. But there are people, they will not even make the effort to attend a Bible study. They will not even make the effort to attend prayer meeting, even though it is online. You understand? Now, how can you fear God if you're like that? On what are you focusing? So when Nehemiah said, I feared God, beloved, it changed both how he treated people and how he handled pressure. Everything he did, it is as a result of the fear of God that was in him. He did not want to do anything to offend God. Because God was his audience. My friend, he could protect the people from injustice in chapter 5 and protect the work from destruction in chapter 6 because God was his audience. So everything he did, as though God was watching him, and he was aware of that. Do you have such an awareness of God? Do you have such an awareness of God that God is watching you as a Christian? That He is your audience in everything that you do? He's watching you. Or sometimes you just ignore Him and think, I know God said this, but I will do that anyway. So internal integrity first, yeah, and then external focus. I fear God, yeah, and because I fear God, I will do His will. I will do His work. I will focus on His work, and I will not let anything derail me. Even sometimes in a church, people within the church will have contrary views. A pastor was just telling me recently. He called me and told me whether I have books on worship. I said, why? He said, oh, some people said in the Psalms they had all kind of music. And let me tell you, the people who say that, they hardly come to church, If you look at their lives, I'm telling you, if you look at their lives, the way they leave home and all these other things, you have to wonder whether these people are saved, But when they come to church, they are the ones who will be asking for all these things. Why do you come to church? You come to worship God. Yeah? Do you need a band to worship God? But we are so subjective today. So, brethren, as I close, I'm finishing early tonight. The work of building God's kingdom in our lives and family and community is still a great work. Do you understand that? You're building the kingdom of God in your own life, in your family life. Because I would hate to think that you would have a family as a Christian and you not try to encourage him to walk with the Lord. Who fears God and will do something like that? Yeah? If you fear God, the same way you are building God's kingdom in your own life, yeah, you will try to raise your family the same way. I'm not saying that you will save them. You can't save anybody. God is the one who saves. Yeah? But this is the way you raise your family. You raise your family in God's way, what God has said. So what you want for yourself, this relationship with God, and being a God-fearing man and woman, you should want the same thing for your children. And if you are a wife and your husband is not saved, you'd want the same thing for your husband. And if your husband and your wife is not saved, you'd want the same thing for your wife. So we are working to build God's kingdom, yes, in our lives, but in our family's life as well. And of course, in the community where we serve. And that's why we preach the gospel. And that's why you do door-to-door visitation, you gather the children, you do all these things because you are trying to build the kingdom of God in the community. And it is not a work for just a few people, everybody in the church. And what will get everybody engaged in the work is if we fear God. And more so, if the leaders of the church fear God, maybe the rest of the congregation will see how they live with God, and this could encourage them. But remember, my friend, the work of building God's kingdom in our lives, yeah, family and community is a great work. There is no work that is as important as gospel work. And by now, you should know that. And just like Nehemiah, We will face invitations to come down or come down off the wall. Things that aren't evil on the surface, but will distract us from what God has called us to. Just like Nehemiah. The devil will always tempt you. The devil tempted Jesus Christ. You think the devil won't tempt you? Of course the devil will tempt you. Nehemiah, they tried everything to get him off. But he remained focused. And that's why the wall get finished, not by answering every call, beloved, but by knowing who called you. Yeah? So we have to stop answering every call and focus on who called us. And this is why they were able to complete the wall with all the distractions internally, externally. They were able to finish the wall in 52 days. That's a record. When you saw the amount of work they had to do. So today, my friends, hear Nehemiah's word to us. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. So may the Lord give us the same clarity and courage today. May the Lord bless us all.